are welcome to the Nextier dialogue on the meter asset regulation, and we'll be doing an outlook on that regulation. I have here with me panelists who I believe are going to do justice to the topic, and I see that the room is full. Thank you all for coming. This is very encouraging, even in the evening of an election result. Whether you are happy or you are sad, we are all here. Very, very encouraging, and at this time of the day. So I have a panel here who I believe will do justice to the topic. I think I'll just introduce them straight away and then talk about why we are here. Sorry, I have a lot of notes because there are a lot of people and I don't want to make a mistake anymore. So to my left, I have Engineer Samuel Dangana. He is Director Operations and Technical Services for Meron Nigeria Limited. He's a seasoned electrical and telecoms engineer with 23 years experience in the power industry. And he began his career in the electricity metering company of Nigeria as a maintenance engineer. So obviously he's a relic as to what we're talking about. Maybe not exactly a relic, but an evolving. He's been there for a while. He was also project manager for the National Prepayment Meter Project of PHCN ULA and was responsible for survey, training, installation and vending. And was responsible at the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company where 117 meters and vending systems were installed in Karu, Wagalaga and Kukwa business units. So I think in Engineer Dangana we have a lot of experience that we've drawn during this discussion. Now to my right, I have anyone who is in this industry wants to be friends with, so that you can be in good books. Engineer Peter Eweso, he's Managing Director for the Nigeria Electricity Management Service. Is it Management Service?
Yes.
Management Service, sorry, I always just call it DEMSA, but it's good to say good degree. So Engineer Eweso, prior to his appointment, worked with the Federal Ministry of Power as a field inspectorate engineer and rose to the rank of deputy director and head of the inspectorate department of the electrical inspectorate department for the ministry. He established and headed both Sokoto and Benin inspectorate offices. So he's been there since 1983 to 2007. He was there between 1983 and 2007. And was vice chairman and member of expert panels that developed, drafted, and produced the distribution code and the health and safety code of the industry for NERC. So, for a lot of maps and utilities who are here, distribution companies, the health and safety code and the distribution code are supposed to be your Bible. And this is the man that was part of the people who wrote that Bible. So, again, I said a lot of experience here. Now to my far right, Mr. Law, I'm an engineer too. The only lawyer here are most engineers. I'm married to an engineer, so I understand how they work. They are logical, we are analytical. Most times it doesn't mix. So Engineer Lawal is Chief Control and Compliance Officer of Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company. And he also acts as a technical assistant to the MDCU for Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company as well. He used to be a regulator as an engineering analyst, so he used to be with the NERC and was awarded Employee of the Year with the NERC and was a member of the Federal Government Committee on Validation of State Government Investments in the Electricity Network, so he's been there for a while. He's a registered engineer, a member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, and a certified utility specialist. So indeed, we have a lot of experience on this panel. We also have a respondent who will join us, hopefully before the end of today, Mr. Nathan Shati. He's Commissioner for Finance and Market Services there. So for a lot of people who have questions for them, hold your horses. Hopefully you get here before we finish. So why are we here? We are here to talk about the meter asset regulation. For everyone here, most likely one way or another is involved in the power sector, or even if you just put a meter in your house, or maybe you don't have one, and you are here, we all understand at least what meters mean to us. For the customers, meters mean that the power that at least I should be able to know how much power I get. For the distribution company, meters mean that if they are able to curtail collection losses and commercial losses. And yes, and keep the customers happy. And for the regulator, what do the meters mean? The meters also mean that you are able to, they are able to get distribution companies to meet their performance target, which includes reducing commercial and collection losses. So it's a critical issue, very critical issue. And just a few facts and figures, so that we know that it's a critical issue and we are yet to scratch the surface. From NERC figures that we have 8.3 registered electricity customers. Registered electricity customers. 8.3 million registered electricity customers. And only 3.7, about 45%, have been metered as at the end of the third quarter. Now, just because I was corrected today, that's why it's good to talk to engineers. I was corrected today by Engineer Lawal, and what he said to me was that one connection could be equal to 4 to 10 people. Because in each home, for example, my home is one connection, and I probably have like 6 or 7 people in my house. So that's one connection. So when we are speaking about metering, it is per connection. But let's look at the figures again. We are in a country of, let's say, they say that we are more than 180 million, but let's keep it at 180 million. And if we say that we have, for example, per connection, we have 4 people, which means that we have over 40 million connections that need to be done. So we've only done 3 point something, 7. If we had 6 people per connection, that would mean that we have to form 30 million meters. And if we had 10 people per connection, it would mean we still need to fund 18 million meters. So just some figures to see that it's quite a serious problem. But to talk a little bit about the regulation itself and why we are here. So NERC in April 2018 issued the meter asset regulation, and it was, it was in 2018 I believe, and it was supposed to take effect in 2018. In April, on the 3rd of April 2018, but was later extended to July 2018. Now, by the regulations, these schools are expected to procure services of who we call MAPs, meter asset providers, for the purpose of meeting their metering targets. And this would include financing to get the meters, would include installation, include maintenance, and include replacement. And they were expected to conclude the first round of meter procurement within 120 days of the regulation's effective date. Remember I said that the regulations, the effective date was shifted to July 2018. And subsequent procurements were to be concluded within another 120 days after the next one. But here we are. We still quite haven't started rolling out. And welcome, sir. I think we have the commissioner now. You're welcome. So I think we'll be talking about from his own perspective why we haven't started. Engineer Laura representing the discourse will be talking about why they haven't started. But what are the reasons that we hear? A few grey areas, a few things that are not quite clear. What's the strategy for recouping investments? In what way would it be? In what would be the structure? Financing plans. What is the coverage actually for a MAP? What is a MAP expected to do? Is the structure well figured out? Can it be financed as it is? So those are some of the things. But one of the other interesting issues that this dialogue seeks to bring out is also how the customers themselves are being engaged. Are they being engaged about this? I know that NERC has had consultation forums, and I remember the one that we had in Lagos, and it was quite feisty, where we had a lady from the Consumer Council, I believe, and there were a number of issues that were raised. if I pay for a meter, it's my meter. I can carry it wherever I want. Oh no, you can't carry it. When I don't get power, should I pay? Should I pay a fixed charge? Many things. So far, we have 108, between 108 to 115, depending on who's talking. So the minister said we have 108 maps who have received no objections. In terms of the process, DISCOs procure, and when they procure, selected bidders are selected. However, NERC has to give those people selected bidders before they bid a no objection. And we have about 108 to 115. But the minister said it's 108, so let's keep to 108. 108 maps who have gotten a no objection so far. So that's where we are. And we'll be looking into a few things. And the objectives for this dialogue will be to, one, help us understand the intent for the regulation. I've said that one of the important issues here is engaging the customers, because the customers, the whole idea of a map and the whole idea of metering is very customer facing. So it's something that the customers need to be well engaged, and you need to sell it to them. If we don't sell it to them and they don't buy it, most of the business models don't work. So I think some of the things we're talking about here is how can we properly engage, and at what stage should we start engaging? Have we already started engaging, or are we not engaging enough? Address unclear areas and the potential challenges with the implementation and its viability. We will also discuss some details of regulation, particularly what are the regulatory requirements. We have Engineer Investor here, and he's going to tell us some very interesting things, particularly for people who are maps or potential maps or the disclosures that are represented here. We'll also talk about appropriate strategies to ensure proper communication, with the customers, as I said. So, that said, we will start first by having responses from each of the panelists, and basically they will be talking about things from their own perspective. And I'm going to start, just as I introduced them, I will start with Engineer Dagana, and he's basically going to be talking about, from a map perspective, what technical, human, and commercial capacities would be required, financing plans and financing constraints that they see, things around ownership of meters, who owns the meter, those are the foreseeable challenges and implementation, and how he sees things go from where he sits down. So, Engineer Dagana, you have the floor for about 8 to 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to partake in this dialogue. It's not my first time. I've always attended as a participant, but today I am the panelist. Quite a great opportunity for me to tell what we're doing in the industry. I work for Meron. Meron is a metering service provider. It's also been given an objection as a map by the regulator. And incidentally, our company has a subsisting contract with Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, and it's not so long ago. It was actually contracted in May 2018. So it was contracted just at a point the map regulation was coming in. And so NEC was quite involved in that procurement process, and it was organized in such a manner that the contract actually was along the map regulation. And so we have 227,000 meters to install for AEDC. And we are also to get financing, provide the meters, install them, and manage them for also 10 years. So we have started, and over 6,000 meters have already been installed. And so today I have a good opportunity to tell us our little experience from that little 6 weeks, 6 months that we have had on site. And basically the first challenge we had was actually that financing. You know, it's actually a 10 billion naira contract. The power financing for such a project, it was not easy to get our banks and all that to agree to the kind of terms that we got from AEDC. So the first challenge we had was how were we going to get the financing and how we were going to cover the interest rates. For most of the maps, that's really a major matter, because you get a project that the distribution companies are not willing to do beyond 13 and 14%, and then you go to the bank and you get it about 20 to 25%. So it became a really major matter for us. And because we really wanted to become pioneers in this map thing, we had to look at how we will do it. And one of the ways was to engage the best manufacturers of meters we knew world over. And of course, then we also understood the provision of NEC, that 30% of our inputs must come locally. So we had to also engage the local manufacturers and see how much pricing was going to look good for vis-a-vis the one we're going to bring from abroad. And at the end of the day, we got a pretty nice deal, and we have begun to deploy. So, like I said, the first challenge we had was getting the right rates from the financing bodies. And I assure you that all the maps that are here will tell us that this is our major and first constraint. Then the second constraint is the matter of adequate information from the discos. And we're glad recently the regulator have insisted that customer enumerations must be done. And that is very critical for the implementation of MAP, because our little experience also with the distribution company here in the city was that you have, okay, we were supposed to install actually on full-blown 1,000 meters per day in Abuja. So you understand that when you have such a massive number, you need adequate addresses and customers and locations and even loads analysis to be able to do that. So we had to look at what they had in the database. It was really not so adequate for us, so we had to do customer enumeration for ourselves and to verify what they had in the database. It actually, there was some kind of shortfall, but it was good for us to start. So we had to do that engagement, and it took us quite some time to get the required data we're going to start with. Then the third constraint we had as map or potential maps is the matter of shortage in the number or the kind and the know-how of available installers in the industry. Whether you like it or not, we have created at the moment over 380 jobs for installers, and it was not easy to come by such persons. We depend locally on NAPTIM to do some kind of training, and then those other ones that we have to give the refresher training ourselves. So, and you can imagine at the moment only Meron is actually doing something that looks like MAP, and to get 380 installers wasn't such an easy work. And you can imagine if all the discos go into MAP. So it is a matter for NAPTIM to begin to look at, and then the maps to begin to, because I know when we start, it looks like people will have to begin to port on what we have already taken time to train, you know, and it's going to cost us some problems. So it's something that all the maps will really have to look at, developing capacity for installers that we will get to serve us in deployments, because the numbers are really going to be large in the days to come. Then one other thing that we have is also, whereas we get from the news agencies that the customers are really willing to have meters, we go to install meters, there are a lot of rejections. I tell you, and it's massive. It's over 30 to 40%. Now, of course, you can understand it in the commercial side of it, that people who have been taking energy without paying, suddenly you have come to ask them to pay. And it's really because our KPIs with the distribution companies are high. You must install 1,000 meters per day, and then you go out with, at the beginning we were doing 180, 120, and then you go with such numbers and you could hardly do 50 of it. And so you go with such numbers, you have to come, and the problems were so high. So it's something that we need to solve, and we started by doing engagements with the community. So together with the customer services departments, we went around, including emirs and chiefs and all the electrical committees in the localities, and had to sit down to do that. And so it's something that MAPS and the distribution companies will have to really help us in achieving when we eventually begin to blow all over the country. Then we have also the issues of bad network. So the network is really bad. So you will have a situation where if you must install a customer adequately, you require not only good meters, but you require also cables, and in some cases there aren't poles. And so you discover that the cost of investment from both the man and the distribution company is so high, and it's really for us a major challenge. I tell you, one of the project we're doing presently, it's inclusive of network cleanup. So we had to do network cleanup. So we earmarked that each customer will have, especially those whose articulation is very bad, we had to install, connect them using 20 meters of red lane, and then for those which are copper, aluminum direct, and then for those who are copper that come underground, we need to use close to 4 to 5 or 6 meters of 16 mm copper to get the right quality of installation that the company asked us to do. So one of the challenges we're going to be having at the site, which we have already experienced, is this lag or this very bad networks. And maybe finally I would like to say, if you look at the regulation, there are responsibilities of the MAP, the responsibility of the customer, and the responsibility of the distribution company. And one of the major matters we have had also is the bad quality of electricity. So that for us is a major matter. I have had cases, because to start with, since we're going to maintain these meters, we have to start a small meter repair workshop. So we have to staff it with the required tools and men, and then our experience has shown. In fact, while I was here, one of my installers on site called and said that we had some guy who has been disconnected on the red lane, but when the guy was reconnecting him, he took the neutral to become a phase, and so on one of the lines, it was face to face on a single phase meter. Oh. So if we had not brought in the right kind of meters, the regulation says you can apply up to 600 amps, 600 volts on the single phase just for a short moment. But if you keep it beyond that short spike, it stays for a minute to, you're going to have the meter down. So I have had to get some meters returned because of that. And the good thing is that we had envisaged such situation, and we were able to, within less than 2 days, get these meters returned, because we had made sure that the kind of such suppressors we installed, we chose for our meters were such that they would easily give up, and we had parts to replace them. So it is one of the things that our maps will have to look at. One of the things we did when we didn't just buy meters off the shelf. We didn't depend only on what the manufacturers had. What we did was we also partook in ensuring the kind of meters that will come to this kind of network. If we don't take that into consideration, you're going to be having meters that you have to take out of the network quite often, and that is at a very high cost. So we have the situation of high voltages sometimes, but there's also a situation of very low voltage. So I have had a site somewhere in Dede where we have 90 volts on the face. So the regulation, I mean the metering code or the NEMSA code says that the lowest voltage we should have should be minus 40% of 240. That which is about 142, 143. Now when you have, and that should be the phase to neutral voltage, and the error limit should be 1%. So if you have less than 140 volts on the phase, you're likely not be able to get a meter with accuracy level 1.0. And so the customer is either taking supply without, because at that point for a prepayment meter, the voltage will go through, but the customer isn't paying for it. So you discover that with the revenue you were trying to save, you're actually losing it there. And then in some cases, the meter does not supply to the house, and then the customer is agitated. My neighbor has light because that guy is on direct, and then I don't have light, so he wants to go and find a way to connect to the light. So it's something we keep waiting on side.
I'm going to stop you there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I think you've talked about a number of things, and I think you actually steered us to where we're going with Engineer Westall and a lot of things around the state of the network, the quality of the network, the quality of the equipment. So I think it's a good time for Engineer Westall to come in and talk about what NEMSA's role is with respect to the map, what standards are expected, what technical measures are in place to enable deployment, what are you looking at with respect to checking bypass, from NEMSA's perspective, and beyond standard meters, what's your outlook from a NEMSA perspective of going to have smart meters?
Thank you very much. And I think I would rather start from the role NEMSA is assigned in relating to metering services, which will actually lead towards having efficient revenue generation within the market that will actually put solvency in the electricity market. NEMSA is actually responsible for ensuring that all meters that are to be deployed in Nigeria have been properly tested and certified to meet the relevant statutory requirement as clearly spelled out in the Nigerian metering code prepared for the sector by the regulator, and also specifications as put out by the IEC standard, because most of our regulations, either metering code, distribution code, are benchmarked against the IEC standard, which is actually the international standard which you need to domesticate. With metering, we have different levels of testing. If you are bringing a meter to the country for the first time, or you are going to manufacture it in Nigeria, which has not been used before in this country, it has to go through what we call type test. Type test means we are checking out this meter to ensure that all the relevant parameters that have been spelled out in the Nigerian metering code are complied with. Outside the accuracy, we need to equally check the resistance of the meter to actually hit, to overcurrent, to overload, and then at the same time to ensure that the relevant limits that have been set in terms of voltages and currents are actually complied with. When this has been done and all these parameters have been met in line with the metering code and IEC standard, NEMSA will go ahead with because these are laboratory-based tests, we go ahead and then issue a type theft certification, which actually has shown the quality of that meter being domesticated to work in our environment. Unlike when you pick a meter off shelf in an environment where you have the temperature not going beyond 35 degrees centigrade, whereas in many parts of this country, it goes as far as up to 45, 50 degrees centigrade. Once all this has been done, that manufacturer or that importer is given a type theft certification. This one only authorizes you to manufacture or to not import. Before deployment, there is a very critical aspect of it. That Nextier, we must ensure that that quality that was approved for you during the type test is maintained. So we now need to carry out what we call routine tests of the large deployment. We do them in percentages, because if you bring maybe about 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 meters, in as much as we're giving you a type test certificate which shows the quality, we do sampling testing of those meters. We do the first one, we do 10%. That 10% for us to do due diligence. But if we have a level of failure from that sample we have taken, because if it's 2,000, we'll just take the first 10%, which is about 200. We're going to stagger them and then take them from different batches. Once these batches, we now test them. And from those batches that are being tested, if we see a significant increase in terms of failure, then we are going to increase the percentage we are going to test. And when that percentage too exceeds the limit to which we are looking for, it means the whole of that batch or the whole of that sample that we brought actually will be discarded, because that is the essence of the routine test, to check and ensure that the meters that have been approved, either importation or manufacturing, actually have made the right standard. At the same time too, we equally do what we call recertification of meters. There have been meters that have been actually deployed. Over a period of time, we know that this meter, due to wear and tear, even though they're electronic, because of temperature, heat, and in terms of like what the Nagana said, when we talk about dirty electricity, bad electricity, we'll have had a lot of impact and shock. Then we do what we call recertification. We'll go to such area, look at the meters, and then try to carry out tests on them and see are the accuracy still correct, and they still meeting the requirement. I would just like to mention something. We're talking about the level of the voltages which have been specified. Really, the metering code has actually given a range, but I think for me, because of the nature and the level of power supply, the quality in this country, probably the regulator may need to look at that, because I'll give you an incident that happened in Jos. I think the Jos Disco actually discovered that they have voltage as low as 70, 80, 90, but people are still using those voltages for productive services, no matter how bad it is. And so for me, as a person, I think whoever is using electricity at whatever level that is able to drive services for it, he should pay. And so that particular meter, when we looked at it, once it met all the parameters, that's in terms of accuracy, in terms of the temperature and what have you, we felt it was right. But I think at a point, the regulator actually frowned at it. So for us, we have to enforce the codes that have been made by the regulator. And what we had to do was to tell our meter testing station to say, from now on, the regulator wants you to actually stay strictly with what the code said, because that's what we are now to do by law. And so with that, what that means is that once your voltage goes below 140, that one is only losing power that is not painful. That's one aspect. Another aspect too is that we are talking about the metering services, and we've always have said it on several fora, several enlightenment campaigns, that to say, one, the efficacy of the meter, the performance of the meter do not depend just only on the accuracy of the meter. It depends on other parameters. If the electrical installation, for example, if the earthing system in that house is bad and is poor, basically you pay for what you are not using, because both sides, either the customer or the utility company, they loses power depending on the nature of the installation. If you don't have a good earthing system and there is earth leakage in your house, there is virtual load. So whether you are using the power that is supplied to your house or not, your meter will actually be reading. There is another issue. We have, because of poor power supply, the low power supply in Nigeria, we have generators in our houses. Many people actually have installed changeover switches that they have continuous neutral. If you have continuous neutral, anytime you are using your generator, because some people say, oh, my meter is running, there are so many things that make it to run. If you are using your generator, you bought your diesel, and you have a 3-pole changeover switch, when your generator is running, you are paying for the same electricity because your meter will read, because the neutral is continuous. Once it forms a closed circuit, you are equally paying for it. So it's something which, during the installation of meter, people need to actually look at them very well. I'm happy he's spoken about default, that is 40 installation meter installers, whereby you find somebody has a 3-phase meter and he has wired a single phase. Basically, you don't expect, the right performance from that meter. You equally find two people are saying, oh, my meter is running, my meter is running. The man has actually left all his light bulbs on. When light goes off and it goes away, when they bring the light back, your meter will definitely continue to run. There's other issue too, which I always like to put into people's domain. People will be saying, oh, NEMSA, this meter you tested is running. What we say, yes. And most times we go back to retest, you find one, the accuracy of that meter is still correct. You remember last year, this State Assembly brought to the floor a motion. We were talking about that the meters were supplied by Reject and one other company, the accuracy were wrong. We actually went into those networks. What we discovered really was that the meter accuracy were correct, but the wiring were completely wrong. Two, you find out that accuracy of the meter really is not just the main thing that shows how the meter will perform. All this equally depends on the tariff and the programming of the meter. But our own activities as regards ensuring that the meter, the efficacy is correct, is ensuring that the accuracy is correct. And the accuracy depends on the type of meter, the level of meter, and how the meter is going to be applied. That will throw me to ask, because I was listening to our man about the meter they deployed in Abuja, Disco 67,000. I'm just hearing it here. And I'm not sure that NEMSA has a record that those meters were routine tested.
No, they weren't tested.
They were not.
They were.
Certificates from you
That was been tested.
Listen, you see, you know, we are here dialoguing. To me, I think we should be frank and we should say things that actually solve any problem that is actually on ground. Because when this program started, I was actually invited for the program, and I think at the point, because we are taught, even while we are growing up in service, we don't participate in anything that we are not sure of. Because when we got there, we called you from the place, and we know the meters were not tested. And as a result, we didn't continue. And as I speak now, my head of meter test station in Kaduna has confirmed then and has confirmed even today that they've not seen any meter.
Okay, maybe
we can take that like.
So see, this one, I'm going to a situation whereby the military that are being deployed, we should not allow people to have kind of apathy over them. And you know, NEMSA will be shouting that if any meter that NEMSA has tested it will carry a seal, it will carry a test label. And actually we are going very soon to ensure that we are going to put out to the public how you can verify your meter that is installed in your house. You can call and then you can actually send a text and you get a response to say yes, it has been tested or not. Because you know, with the map, to solve most of our problems, there's going to be explosion, and for us to ensure that the type of meter that are deployed will be the right type and the right quality, like they have said. If you have meters, honestly, I really pity these map asset providers. I can tell you why. Because the nature of the quality of power supply you have today, I pray that they will be able to actually recover their investment. And I will tell you why. Apart from the interest, if the rate at which meters will roll out as a result of fraud or bond, then it's going to be a challenge, which I think probably maybe the regulator will probably have to look at that aspect. Because if it's not looked into at this stage, it's going to be a challenge. And I really, it's been bothering me, and I feel it's something that needs to be looked into. And two, this industry is growing, and I would really like the regulator to know that you have in the metering code, which Nextier is implementing. After these meters have been deployed, after 2 years, definitely Nextier need to go back and retest them and recheck, and it's done for a fee. And if all these parameters are not captured at the beginning, that the map asset provider knows that after 2 years or 3 years, his meter will be tested, I need to pay a fee, then it's going to be an issue. Because when that time comes, I know Nigerians, once an information is at their domain, we will exploit it. The consumer will say, after 3 years, my meter needs to be retooled. And so all these are the things I think we need to actually look at and then be very sure that we are going to be at the right time, at the right place at the right time, and ensuring that we will not actually, instead of gaining in this map, it can more or less be like something that will be a challenge. Because if your rate of losses is very high, then it's going to be, I see it as a challenge, I see it as a problem that needs to be looked into at the beginning of map, so that it's something that is going to be properly done. And I will probably say too that it will be good if the discos who are going to give out this procurement, in the procurement procedure too, it will be good if the map and the disco we agree to assess the level of the network of the area they have been referred that they are given. Because if you do not factor into it that there are other services, activities to be done before your metering can be reliable, it's going to be a challenge. If you don't put appropriate facilities in the place, it's going to be a challenge. And those other components that need to be provided, I did not see them inside the regulation. So, and I think as we're discussing, these are coming up, it's good that we actually look at them. And like the last question I asked, how will Nextier actually ensure that the right type of meter are being deployed? One of the critical elements is for us to ensure that we do the routine test effectively and ensure that during the routine test, all the parameters that have been approved are the same parameter that the new meter is bringing. I'll give you an instance. Some people brought some meters to our meter test station in Kaduna, and when we did the time test, when they brought the real one to be deployed, several ones, we find they were not meeting the requirement. In fact, got to a stage, they have to bring technician experts from where the meters were purchased to come and start to fix some of the items that were wrong. Instead of internal voltage link, they were external, which will actually make the meters prone to tampering. So, but But if they had followed the type test survey they had and bring the exact type of meters, that would have been avoided. And if you look at that now, if that happened in a map, it's a big expenses, consequences the person need to actually look at. So I don't think I would like to stop here.
Thank you for that. Just before Engineer walks out, but okay, since he's walked out, I think we should take the opportunity. Thank you, sir. I think it was very helpful and there were some interesting revelations. So I think a few things that we've learned here with maps, you need to do, and corroborating what Engineer Dangana said, you need to do your due diligence on every part of the network that's going to be. So it's not getting a contract and go yay and just getting in there. Due diligence needs to be done. Like in every transaction, you need to understand what is in there, and that would form the basis for your contracting. I think one of the things that came out very strong here was risk allocation. The risk allocation, the risks must be allocated to the parties able to bear them. So things around quality of power, for example, things around power supply, it's not the maps, it's not within the control of the map. Things around the state of the network, for example, except if the map agrees to take it on, having seen what is in there, then that will have to be costed, and there's always a cost to taking on risk. So I thought that was really, really, really helpful, apart from the fact that we then got a regulatory query in the midst of the discussion. Engineer, now, so coming to you, I think Engineer has he's brought it back to your point, and I'd really like for Mr. Shati, after Engineer talks, to respond to some of the things that have been raised that are in corner, and I will also raise some questions that will be directed at him as well. But Engineer, to come to you now, we've probably seen some of the reasons why you haven't started, but maybe you want to tell us why haven't you rolled out? So you are involved in both discos or just Kaduna, but Kaduna has Kano. Kaduna and Kano are kind of related. So you'll be able to tell us from your experience the reason why you haven't quite rolled out, even though you've been asked to roll out within 120 days of the effective date. What are the issues, what are the constraints that you see? And perhaps you want to also respond to some of the issues that have been raised, issues around financing. How does that work for you? Engineer Dangana said that, speaking to a disco, they said they couldn't more than 30%, and banks, at least our banks are doing 22%. So what constraints have you seen? Is there a model problem? I know that you and I had a discussion. Is there a model problem? Are we looking at this differently? Should it be modeled differently? We know that in other clients, in more sophisticated clients, it's an asset management business. Is this how we are structuring ours? What should we do? Do you need a little bit more time to structure it, or is something that we are not even sure if you want to go into? So, what are the constraints?
Okay. So, hello everyone. Great to be here. I'm here as a representative of the discos, even though I'm just from one disco, but I believe most of us have the same issues. We are operating in the same network and same environment. So we were mandated to start the procurement process sometime in April. It was extended in June, and it was supposed to have been completed by October. But right from June, I believe, the first major constraint we had in going forward was the process of the no objection by NAC. NAC actually issued out no objection to potential companies, but I think they had a lot of petition that we have already issued out EOIs, and a lot of them are left out in the process. So as at then, they had, I think, about 38 or so. So we had to extend the EOI stage when they passed about 85. So I mean, at that point, we had to extend the procurement process. Having done that, it came concurrently with the fact that quite a number of those already registered or those maps that had no objection, some of them didn't even respond to the UIs of some of the discourse. So we were glad that more came on board and we had more discussions. Further, we now entered into discussions about all the nitty-gritties, the financing, the technical issues. As Engineer Dagana said, the customer data numbers, network data. Some of them actually went to see some of the field activities, and that was when things started cropping up. And it was at that point some of the potential maps realized that whatever model that they were thinking was not going to work. And some of their financial models started becoming overburdened with risks, because basically your financial model is trying to hedge all your risks. So people were coming up with all sorts of things that would be able to help protect their revenues. At that point, NAC issued a draft MSA, Meter Service Agreement, and a Service Level Agreement, which we shared with all the potential map bidders. Lots of back and forth. I mean, this is a unique transaction. It hasn't been done, so it wasn't a regular procurement that could have been replicated here, or even within, we have not done something similar. So it was fraught with so many back and forths, and we had to make sure that we protected ourselves as well as ensure that the map is also equally protected, because we are ceding some of our franchise rights to this party. If anything goes wrong, the asset that is deploying is our single only revenue point. So we are in grave danger, you know, and as such it would harm a lot of our business. So every single issue that the map raises is a double issue for us. We want to make sure that it becomes taken care of. So I believe most of these discussions took time between September till November, and at November point, most of these feedbacks were taken to NAG, and I believe we had a workshop in December, on December 3rd or 4th in Lagos, to discuss these issues, and fantastic feedbacks from NAG, the potential map bidders, and the discourse. And I think almost most of the issues were agreed upon at that point. I think, I wouldn't want to preempt that, but after that point, by beginning of January, most of the discourse now had, mostly finalized their map process. As I speak right now, I can authoritatively say that Kaduna and Kano Disco have concluded their map 100% pending approval and validation by the regulator and signing of the contract. Most of the maps that we have, we've already exchanged the contracts, we've agreed every single point because everybody has initialized. So we are waiting approval to kickstart it. We were late in finalization, and I believe the regulator worked throughout the election period to get to speed. Our intention is that we have a very robust and detailed rollout plan with each of the proposed maps. And our intention is as soon as we have the approval, we use the whole of March to take care of what Engineer Eweso is stating about the network validation, network cleanup, and then roll out in first week of April. And I mean, there's really nothing to be boastful about rolling out meters, but we want to create all the noise that should be there, because there certainly needs to be a lot of customer education. We've tried to do that, but it's been adding pressure to us and a lot of discos that we've been saying this on radio since sometime in October. The meters are coming by January, and this is already end of February. Where are they? So I understand, as I speak, one of the potential maps of ours is outside the country. He sent me a text yesterday that, I mean, he's waiting for that approval. How far are we? One of the most important and critical elements in the map deployment is back-end infrastructure. I thought I would hear that from Engineer Dangana, but a meter is essentially a tin of can that you measure groundnut. It's quite displeasing that the street people that sell groundnut, they have an instrument of measurement. It's not a sophisticated equipment. It's not a rocket. So why can't we have them? We are very, very passionate and happy that a solution has been provided through this map. I believe we are one of the few that keyed into the Ministry of Power. We are keen that we should have this metering, whichever way possible, map, non-map. We really need to meter people, because it's our assurance of revenue. So at the end of the day, the implementation starts in April. We want to make sure that communication between meter and our backend systems, the payment process and settlement are all consummated before the end of March, beginning of April. We cover a land size of 148,000 square kilometers. Kano are somewhere around 98,000 square kilometers. We cover a large land size. Our logistics requirement is quite different from Lagos. I believe that's 5,500 square kilometers. So 2 discos there are having less than 3,000 each. So we thought that there would be some flexibility in terms of having maps. That's why we went for multiple maps. I learned one of the 2 discos in Lagos wanted 2 maps. So some of the discos, one of the discos had just a single map. I believe Yola and Enugu, I am not sure, but in total we are looking at somewhere around between 11 maps each a disco, and about 20. We are proposing 4 maps, and once we get the approval, that's what we are going to do.
To Kaduna has been proposed?
Yes. So, we cover 4 states, and we are trying to see how we can be able to manage those 4 states comfortably. So, in terms of customer engagement that one of my co-panelists mentioned, we've been trying to do that as much as we can. I mean, at the back of our bills now are enlightenment campaign on maps. We've been also going to the radio stations, sending out jingles, doing a few social media engagement as much as we can. I mean, with all the pending issues that we have. I'm happy that Engineer Eweso also mentioned the seeding of meters. It's a huge deal breaker for discos. I remember for a fact before joining the disco, it was a talking point between the regulator and NEMSA, because NEMSA proposed that somehow there should be that recertification in the tariff. If it's covered by the OPEX, fine and good. But if it's something that is asset-based, then it should ideally be covered somewhere in the tariff. I don't know if a position has been reached, but the fact that it's now been shifted onto the map, now I think it probably provides the comfort that it's out of the tariff and can be consumer funded. I think it makes it a bit easier because the payment is a bit dynamic. So I believe that as a DISCO, that's how we look at it. The tariffs are much more rigid than the MSCs, and I think the regulator might be able to see something better. The financing part is the tricky part. When the MAP consultation paper came on board, we tried to get 1 or 2 asset management companies, and we entered into discussions that could you possibly meet up NERC, and we also told some people in NERC, could you possibly sit down with asset management companies? This is a business that already runs in the country. You have asset management firms that own and operate leases with telecom masts for periods of 20 years, 10 years. You give out to an operator, he runs and covers. You have companies that operate cars for banks and the rest. They get funding and structured loans from those asset management companies. So this is something at the high level which they understand. Now the intricacies of it is something that we can now discuss, and we did. But I mean, funny enough, they all were so rebuffed or confused about the whole thing. We have the model. There are 2-meter asset companies that are known of in the UK. Each one of this doesn't have more than 20 staff. They own the asset and other people operate it. They have about 6 different operators, installers, managers. I mean, all they do is get daily feedback because they are smart meters, and they have a timeline of 2020 to finish installation. They've been doing this for 6 years, 6 or 8. And we thought we would model this. We understand the pressure we are under, and there's nobody under that pressure like us. But we really thought that the asset management companies would get into this. But what we currently have are pure engineering companies or meter manufacturers or businesses that are into trade. At the risk of having no party, they're the very best option that we have. And we would love to, finish off with them. However, we really wish there were those asset management companies who had the financing and the patience to go through, so that those meter providers would now focus on sourcing and deployment and operations. As I said, we'll make the best use of what we have with them. We would try as much as possible to see how it goes, and we would definitely have to meet up this timeline. And the regulator sets a timeline of 3 years. For each of our MAP, we have the target of 2 years. We want to make sure that by end of 2020, we are done, even though the actual rollout is 3 years. Our target is you are not as much as, you're not just a single map for this company. So 4 of you get on the race, make sure you finish by 2020. We are having huge collection losses, and the best possible way to close this is by having as much meters as possible. I need to state finally that every single meter that we want on our network it has to be a smart meter. That's the only way that you'll be able to monitor these meters. That's the only way you'll be able to see their performance real time, and then you'll be able to monetize immediately as energy is being drawn. You know how much you're making and what gets out. However, smart meters run on a very robust communication backbone, and that's also a challenge. So from one challenge to the other and the rest. But I'm happy that a lot of these maps understand these challenges, and we've been having very constructive discussions, and I'm happy by the level of enthusiasm, the passion, and the investment that they've already been making over the last few months to see that they're able to make this. And I mean, it's an ingenious way of solving this huge problem, and I'm sure we'll be able to export this onto other African countries in the very near future.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lawal. I think that was very good and kind of like brought everything together, getting from your side, and it's I think it's refreshing to be hearing from the schools that they did want to meter, and with the enthusiasm that we're seeing, we are hoping that we begin to see results. So I think we will now get responses from Mr. Shanti on some of the issues that have been raised. I know that you probably have some notes on some things you'd like to respond to, but I just wanted to add two things to your list. I think you may even have one of them. One is the local content requirement. And I think my question is, maybe, well, NERC already has a position, so maybe I should, but I'm still asking you.
You can ask.
Yes. Should NERC at this stage be prescriptive, as local content, given that there is a cost element to it, given also that there is also the issue of capacity as well, and we don't even have proper meter manufacturers. I think everybody that says that they're a meter manufacturer is probably a meter assembler right now. Is there anybody that actually manufactures meters here? I'm not sure. Really. Proper, yes, proper, not assembly, but manufacturing. Fantastic. So, as you said, it's supposed to be a simple device. So, given the constraint, should not really be, and I am totally for local content, but should we let the market dictate and for people for competition to dictate how things go?
I understand, so that I guess others can see. Okay, thank you, Lord, and our great panelists. I don't know whether you're Lawa. We know you Nancy as Lawa. And our participants and registered guests, I want to greet all of you. Good evening. Let me just say that panelists so far very good expose of what MAP is likely going to face, and I wish that we have a lot of maps, potential maps, in this place today to have heard some of the challenges they have, and of course the potential of making money. He didn't say that, but I know there is. I think it's a good one. And then for our chief inspector, I think Inspector General of the Power Industry, I think you are doing a good job. It's good. There's something you said that I think NEMSA should try as much as possible to enlighten people. The issue about why I'm running my generator, my meter may be reading. That is very, very key for every consumer, because I think most Nigerians who can afford generators have generators. And because the power is not constant, you need to use your generator. So it means I will be paying for darkness while I'm paying for fuel for my generator. It's not right. So I think there is need for us to understand what can we do. I'm not an engineer, but what can we do for people who have generators at the changeover point? What can we do so that when my generator is running, I'm not paying for electricity, so that Lawa will not continue to get money for what he's going to do. And I appreciate the contributions from Lawa, who is representing Kaduna Disco on behalf of, or representing Discos on behalf of, while he's here on behalf of Kaduna Disco. He has said what he knows they did in the process of trying to get NAPs. But I think I will say much more to at least give an idea of what has happened so far in the industry. Now, I know you've asked some questions. Let me say something about local content. And I think you were trying to be, I don't want to say the word to do a disservice to our local manufacturers who are doing very good job in producing meters for us in this country. We have that. We have 2-3 manufacturers in this country that we can put our hands and say they are doing a good job. And I think Engineer Wesu will also attest to that. They are doing a very good job. So far in the industry today, I think they are deploying most meters. They have even come to say that the 30% local content we're talking about is too small. We should increase it to 50. And they are using that to as well say that even the government came out with an order to say that local content is something that everybody should take seriously. So what I'm saying is that the 30% is too small, to be honest. And I know that looking at the capacity, because we have to call some of the manufacturers, we've gone to their factories, we've seen what they are doing. Some are importing parts and assembling them in Nigeria, but some are actually designing. They design the meter. So you can imagine somebody who is in this environment designs the meter and then produces it. I mean, that is something that is marvelous. And I think we need to encourage them. And they have the capacity to produce meters that we need. He just talked about deploying 100 meters in a day. It's not easy. 1,000 is the contract. 1,000. I had you right, but but you are doing about 100 or 120, and they will go and they end up with 50. It's not easy deploying meters. So what I'm saying is that it takes time. So they have capacities, but I think those capacities can match the rate of deployment that we have right now. So I guess the issue about local content is not something that we are really concerned. And in the regulation we say it's something that we will review from time to time depending on how the situation pans out. Now, I jot down some couple of points, but I think let me just give an overview of where we are today regarding the MAP. Like you know, the regulation came into effect in March 2018. In fact, it was effective 3rd April 2018. And in the regulation, we stated a 120 days time limit for the discos to conclude on the procurement process. Unfortunately, because of some delays which Lawa mentioned, things to do with giving no objection to potential MAPs, things to do with getting tender auditors who are going to actually audit the process of the procurement to ensure it's fair, objective, and other issues that we have made us to extend the date from April 3rd to 1st of July. And then we started counting the 120 days from 1st of July. So the 120 days will end on 31st of October 2018. So the expectation is that by 1st November, all discos will have completed the procurement process and submitted their reports to NERC, who will review, and where we are satisfied that it has met all the requirements, we issue permits. That wasn't done 1st of November. And we knew some of the challenges, like what you said. There are a lot of need for understanding the process. And in the procurement process, some of the discos even gone further to ask for a proof of concept from the potential MAPs, meaning that they will give you an area and say, go and demonstrate what you can do. provide meters, check all the issues like the one you are bringing up about power, quality of power and the rest of them. And it takes time. So all those things delayed the process. And there were also need for understanding the process. We had an earlier conference, a workshop in Lagos, Law mentioned, to try and educate both MAPs and the discos, and also to know where they are. And a lot of revelations came out. In January, we had to call each disco with the tender auditors that have been allocated for the process to come and tell us where they are. Because as of January, we have not received single report. And we had to sit down to go line by line. Where were you? What did you do? How did you go through this? Have you initial MSAs? Have you initial SLAs? What are the challenges with securitization? All those things we did with them. And we now have to give an extension to them to 31st January. But we told them that there is going to be penalty for the delays from 1st of November. And by 31st January, there were still some stories here and there, then we extended it 1 week. But the good thing is that as of today, we have received reports from all the discos with requirements as indicated in the regulation and what NERC wants. They have submitted that to NERC. We have had a review. We have an in-house committee that is handling things to do with MAP, and they have done that review. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to give me the report today, which they are still working on. That report will be presented to the Commission, and we will look at it disco by disco, and we will be able to now look at those who we think have fairly and objectively done the process. Because you see, it's not enough to get just an MAP. The example or the experiences you've said, it's important for us to be sure that people can actually be able to deliver. Now, one of the challenges which you mentioned, one of them, you said people don't want meters for whatever reason, because the meters will now expose how much truly they are consuming, and then they will be forced to pay. There is no argument about no, I don't have a meter. The second part is that when we deploy meters, we know that consumers will come and start arguing about the cost they are paying for the meters. Because we said that when you have your MAP meter or a meter deployed by MAP, there will be a line item showing meter service charge. And that is what you continue to pay depending on how long you are going to pay for the meter. In the regulation, we gave 10 years, but that is the max. Along the line with the discussions we had with the discos and the MAPs, we said that, look, you can have an outright procurement as a consumer, you can have an outright purchase, you can say, I will pay over 3 years, you can say over 5 years. And so even the procurement process allowed for that, for MAPs to now come with a proposal that if I'm going to deploy 500,000 meters, I want you to do a simulation of those who will probably 100 that will pay within 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Let me see what the cost is going to be. Because the longer you take in paying, the more expensive it is. Because there's cost of financing and the rest of it. So the cost of the meter is very important for the Commission. In as much as metering is needed, but the cost is important because that is what eventually the customers will be paying. And so we have to make sure that the cost of a 3-phase meter by an MAP deployed in Lagos will not be at variance so much with the one that an MAP is deploying in Kaduna. It's the same economy. So there are so many things we are looking at before we give the permit to ensure that consumers are not changed. Or somebody will just say, oh, my cost is this. And that is why we wanted it to be very competitive. Because competition will bring out lower prices in most cases. So I just want to say that as of now, the reports have been finalized and the Commission is going to sit next week to look at the report, and then we will take decisions on those who will give permits to. And I'm sure by the time we give out the permit, the expectation is that by April, May, an MAP that has an award and permit, is ready to go and start mobilizing. He has already talked with his financiers and is ready to mobilize. So what it means is that from what they say, within a month or 6 weeks, they should be able to mobilize. Some are even ready to do that within 4 weeks. So the expectation is that by April, May, Nigerians will begin to see new meters rolled out by agencies. That does not stop the discourse from deploying meters they have today in their warehouses, because some of them still do. Some have old contracts, like the Meron example. It's a contract that AEDC has already signed with them before the implementation of MAP, and they have to finish that contract because of the implication of their contract agreements. We don't know what it is. But for those ones, they will make sure that they fulfill their contract obligations. So that is where we are today in terms of the procurement process.
Thank you, sir. I think we have to go to the audience now because there are concerns about us wrapping this up with people.
One of the marks. My question is actually for the MD of NEMSA. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. And because when we are doing all the processes, all the procurement processes, there was, little or no mention about NEMSA. The understanding was that we need to do a type test for all our meters before we can actually bring them in and deploy. And most of us went through the process of doing the type test. But we weren't informed at the time that we also need to do a routine test, which I assume that will attract additional cost as well. I hope I'm wrong here. And the other aspect is when you now said that after 2 years we'll be required to do another round of testing. Would that one be free, or are we also required to make
That's the cost.
So, because we've gone so far with the procurement process and all issues regarding to the pricing and everything has been decided. So if we are going to be talking about additional cost with the routine testing, the seal, and additional testing after 2 years, that's a whole lot of cost, which we didn't actually plan for. So how do we get around to resolving this issue, because it's quite a burden on us. Thank you very much, sir.
For Engineer Westside of NEMSA, he told us here that one of the key roles of NEMSA is to ensure that every meter to be deployed is tested and certified before being deployed. And before us here, he challenged Dr. Dagana, whose organization already deployed about 6,000 meters, that is not so sure they have gotten their meters tested before the deployment. So I want to ask the engineer if his agency is actually living up to the expectation of Nigerians. And then to Engineer Dangana, he mentioned that most customers are not willing to be metered. I stand to be corrected in the sense that I know that people who live within the metropolis, the likes of myself who live in an estate here in Abuja, the charges are so much, and everybody in my neighborhood is yearning for meters. Even if it means paying, we are willing to pay. But I can tell you that when you go to the suburbs, the people there, because they pay less and they use more, they are not willing to get themselves metered. So why don't you start with the rest of us who are in the metropolis, so that we'll get metered and then we'll pay. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do this side.
My engineer Oyebanjo. My question is for the commissioner. When he said something about the customers. So now the customers will pay the cost of meters. But who owns this meter? Can the customer live with this meter if they have cost to change their location?
Okay, that's the question.
Thank you.
That question again, we can't hear it.
Okay. Why do we have to retool our meters after 2 years?
Okay.
Is that the international standard? If yes, do you have the capacity to retool them every 2 years?
My question, I think I'm glad that the regulator is here Nextier is here. The discos are here. As I introduced myself earlier on, I'm a consumer. I'm not a Jenko, I'm a consumer today. And my question is this. This is MAP. Nigerians who are very much conversant about the power sector will recall that in 2013, we had what we call CAPME. Now in 2018, we have MAP. During the CAPME, including myself and most of the consumers here, paid for CAPME, and some of them have not been supplied. I got supplied because I use high-level connection. So, a lot of the consumers here have not been supplied under the CAPME. Now my question is this. Those consumers who have not been supplied under the CAPME, what happens to them under the MAP? That's one question. Two, how many consumers understand the mechanism or the operationalization of MAP? If you take a survey here, if Nextier can take a survey, I can bet 30% of us don't understand what is MAP. So, are we going to roll out a program such as that massively in the country, and we say that consumers are rejecting meters? I don't understand why you're bringing one machine. What is it about? In fact, what is a meter? If you're not in the power sector, you don't even know the use of a meter.
Thank you.
So there is a need for education.
Because I think for other people to, there's a lady there.
Again, I work for the International Center for Investigative Reporting here in Abuja. My question is to Mr. Eweso. You talked about recertification after 2 years. Now, what about those other meters that were inherited after the unbundling of NEPA? I'm saying this because when we're planning for the things that we're doing presently, we're not looking at what we have done before. And this is very important. Now, recently, I discovered that my meter, once I buy units and I load it on the meter, instead of giving me the actual unit I bought, it will now reduce. It will go down by maybe 30 units or 20 units. This has been going on for the past 3 months. So if probably I buy 200 units, and the moment I load it on my meter, it drops to 170 instead of giving me 200 units. That's the problem. So I think we should factor this issue in the recertification plan. Secondly, we're talking about this MAP thing. We're talking about.
Sorry, but that's a comment or a question because I can only take one question.
It's a comment. Well,
no, I'm sorry, I can only take questions.
Okay, this one is a question. No, it's a question. It's a question actually. Now we're saying people will be paying for meters. Initially, we were told that these meters were free. Now we are being told here that consumers will be paying for this meter in form of fixed charge or access charge. We need to tell people these things because if we put these things hidden and at the end of the day, consumers pay for these things, it will not be fair. I don't know whether this is coming up because we're in the next level. Please, you need to go. Thank you.
Yes, sir. My name is Shembadanju. I run a solar energy company, and I'm also the president of Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria. So, straight question to the commissioner and any other of the panelists. One, what is the outlook for net meters in Nigeria? Why do I ask? I have solar power in my house, so during the daytime, I generate most times excessive energy when we have less people at home, and I cannot sell to anybody. Then the other reason why I'm also asking is I'm worried now that even when I'm using my solar power, I might likely also be incurring bills. It's not only generators that might be affected. So it's a big problem, that I probably need some solution. Okay, so what is the output for net? A net meter would enable me to sell my excess energy to the grid when I'm not using all the extra. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dadu.
We're just trying to enter into the Nigerian market. So my first question is to Ned. I want to know if there is still possibilities for new entrants that want to participate in the MAP program. That's one. Then secondly, I want to find out on the issue of local content. You know, the 30% we are talking about. Is it the discourse? Maybe in the process of carrying out the procurement, they will reserve 30% for the Nigerian companies. Or do you expect us, for instance, as a meter manufacturer, to bring in our 70% of our own meters and then procure 30% from the Nigerian manufacturers? So please, I would like some clarifications on that. Then finally,
I'm sorry, sir. I have to give the gentleman behind the chance, please. I'm really sorry. We need to also wade in here.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think that's why I say today that we should talk to ourselves very frankly. Some of the data asset providers, when they were going to this, some of them actually visited NEMSA to inquire as regards testing, payments, and the way forward. The first thing I did to those who came was to bring out the metering code, because everything NEMSA is dealing with is based on the rule and the law and the code that have been prepared for metering in Nigeria by the regulator. It is clearly stated a type test will be done, and thereafter, before you deploy any meter after the type test, you must, in fact, what the regulations say, we only looked at it as an agency to follow international best practice. The regulation says all. We only took a decision to say the best practice, you do sampling. So initially it was even 40%, but when we look at the situation and people complain, it's okay, we do 10%, and that 10% we use as a reflection of what other meters will look like, because we believe if we're giving you a type test certification describing the quality of the meter you are to bring, if you now produce according to that quality, there should not be much difference. So, and the metering code make it very clear that most of all the things you see us discussing as NEMSA, we discuss them in line with what the rules and regulations says. My friend who has asked, pick the metering code, you see all these things right there. So if you didn't, as a man, you didn't take that into consideration, that's not, I don't think it's even either the regulator nor the DISCO that did that. The only thing is that who paid for it, which has been the hue and cry of people, and that is not for us. But for us is that it's an assignment, it is a statutory function that any meter that must be deployed must be type tested, must be routine tested to confirm that. So it is not left for those who are deploying meters to ensure that that aspect is done. And that was why we said clearly to say, we know with MAP going to be an explosion of the deploying of meters, we know there is going to be, in fact, a lot of all manner of meters. And that's why my team, my staff are already working out to ensure that we're going to come out with a system whereby any meter you put in anybody's house, the person will be able to cross-check that that meter was tested. And I'm really saying it to say that those of you who will be deploying these meters, you just have to be very cautious, because Nigerians are fully aware of their rights now. And once that comes on board, it's going to be a lot of challenge to the DISCOs, because people will kick against, because people ask for it. It's like today, you buy drugs, you can verify whether that drug is fake or genuine.
And then also, if you can just go to your own next question, there was something about is NEMSA living up to expectation? I'm not really sure. Even though it's a rhetorical question. The question was, is NEMSA really living up to expectation?
Well, I will tell you that if you are not living up to expectation, there is no one who will know that meters are being deployed that are not tested. But the point is very clear. We follow up with meters that are being deployed in the system. We have our field officers and we follow up. And most of the DISCO really will not actually, when they are deploying meters, we will know. We have our laboratories set up to do this routine test. So when we know that you are deploying meters and those meters have not been routine tested, we will tell you, right to you. In fact, there are some DISCOs who are coming, they were going to launch their meter, a meter that has not been tested, but it means I'm legalizing it. It's like when somebody wants to commission a network, because our job is not just really meters, any installation whatsoever, if it's not tested and certified, you can't put it to you because that's only quality control within the system. All I did was enter the vehicle bureau and write to a letter and say, please make sure you comply. And many of the discos are already having the challenges because there are some discos now that have deployed meters. People have kicked at them. Just was a test case for us in which what we did, because the state government and the federal government actually asked, Nextier, what are you doing? What we did as the agency enforcing, we asked them to stop until we tested, and they have to bring all the meters all the way from Jos to Kaduna to test. So we'll live up to expectations, and that's what Ismo saying now that the commissioner said something which I think we probably may need to look into. If we are divided now that in 4 weeks these meters will be deployed, there will be a challenge, and the challenge is that if Nextier is not given adequate time, adequate notice, adequate information, definitely is going to be a challenge because there are processes that need to be followed. We need to see these meters come in, we need to move to test them before they can start deploying. So that it will be good enough that the people who are bringing these meters, bring them a good time so that these meters can actually be checked out before we are looking about 4-5 weeks so that we don't have those challenges. And basically, this map asset regulation is going to revolutionize deployment of meters. So there's likely to be clock, and if we don't plan it properly, we'll have some challenges.
Thank you very much.
The lady who asked about he pays and the short change in terms of reducing, I'll tell you 2 things could happen. Your meter could actually have a challenge. Your tariff class could have changed. At the same time, you could actually have maybe there are some bills who are owing because from our investigation we've done with net forum offices in some of the locations, we'll find out that there are some bills that are standing, which some discos, I will just say that they are supposed to be legacy there, but they still go out in trying to collect them. So what happens is that when you buy a credit of maybe 200 units, they will take 50 units, you only get 150. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that the meter accuracy could actually have issue or challenge. What you can do, if in such a situation, you can actually go to your disco and complain to them. Because we have a process. We don't like going to test a disputed meter for a customer without the disco. Because we want all parties to be present when any of this exercise is being done. So those are the things that will have happened to your meter. Either you are paying for bill accumulated before, or your meter's accuracy are depreciated because over time it depreciates. So those are the scenarios that will have happened. So if we know the place, if it's in Abuja, we can actually ask ADC to make an arrangement for us to go and check it out, and then you can then know what the position is.
Is there something else to say? Okay.
You've been saying thank you.
Thank you, yes. Did you want to add something to that?
No, just
okay.
to answer. I mean, I know we are.
Okay, because there are a few questions that I think some people on the panel, maybe you just round up after we finish. Okay. So, yes, I think, and now this question is for you. What happened to Camp? To her second question, which was kind of more a comment, how many customers understand what the map really is? I think one action point from here is, more around desensitization. And I think that just following a bit from what Engineer Wesso has said, there needs to be a clear interface between NERC and NEMSA as to how procedure and things are done, because we now talk about the fact that NEMSA can be a hurdle to rolling out, because NEMSA says some things have to be done. So there has to be that between MAP, DISCO, NEMSA, NERC. So there has to be that interface so that it's smooth. And one of the things that, as a transaction player, one of the things that is very, very frustrating for our clients and doing business in these clients is it always just seems like there's one more surprise. there's one more hurt, you know. And it's easier to do business when you have everything written down. And it says you go from here, 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 here. At the beginning, when the person is going into the business, they cost everything. But when, and again, it could be sensitization. It could be sensitization as well, apart from the fact that due diligence maybe was not done in some ways. Get advice, and sometimes when you are doing these things, there are multi-million naira dollar things. Get advice so that they can advise you. That's something else. You know, so it's important that there is that professional advisors, yes, across professional advisors across, so that you don't have surprises. So I think there's a need for that interface. That was just to answer Dr. Ogaji's second question. But what happened to that people?
2016, we had a number of customers who had paid for CAPMI but didn't have their meters installed. I remember in Kaduna we had somewhere around 300 or so. So for us, it was a mix of customers who paid anticipating there would be a time lag and their buildings would come up right about the time that the meters would be installed. So we came ahead and to say that let them, I mean, we are ready to install the meters because it's been stopped. Come forward and we'll do that. Some of them kept saying, hold on, hold on, hold on. Some were quite ready and we deployed. As I speak, we still have, I think, less than 20, 30 that either they have moved on or the buildings never get completed. I know for a fact that there are some customers who had issues with other discos, haven't paid, didn't get, and there's really no feedback. But for us, even when the CAPMI providers, the companies, stopped providing meters, when we had our own deployment, we actually installed. For one other disco, I know that they didn't do CAPMI, so as such, customers who paid got meters installed from their normal deployment. But I really don't know why up till now a customer would pay, he has all the documents and the disco would not, because apparently there's no disco that hasn't done its own internal deployment. So there's really no excuse, and it's something that I think you should take up through the customer center or the NAD forum office. If I may, I would also want to talk about the net metering question. The net metering question and the switch over questions are similar. What Engineer Eweso stated, and I think everybody needs to get it clear, is there is a fault in the installation. Now, anything above the metering point is a consumer's obligation to ensure that his electrical wiring is done right. Coincidentally, it's the same NEMSA that certifies electrical contractors. And quite a number of quacks exist, and they've been flushing them. I know that Kaduna wrote on some of the quacks that we met. I think just last week we've caught one we would write. It's really important that you check the documentation of your Form 74. It's one of our single biggest problems that people don't really even understand the contract that they have between them and the DISCO. They just give out the electrical works, the contractor finishes, he uses his phone number, his name, and everything that exists there on the bill. So it's really important that you do check if there's a feedback, if there's earthing problem, if there's phasing problem, single phase coming to the house and then switching to a single phase or the other way around. It is your obligation to get a certified electrical contractor or a registered engineer to ensure that that installation is done properly. Because at that point, if, God forbid, you have anything like fire, accident, or similar,
the obligation is on you and your contractor. It is our obligation stops at the metering or boundary point if there's no meter. So if you have an earthen, basically there's no amount of electricity that cannot get into the earth. So all of these other issues like the bulk feeding, like the meter having a reverser, are all products of bad wiring, and you should get a very good engineer or certified electrical contractor to do that for you to ensure quality of supply.
Okay, on the net metering itself, so Mr. Shati, I think I'm going to just leave you so that we can round up. It's two things. Net metering, is it possible? Is it on the horizon?
It's not only two now, there are so many.
Okay.
On net metering, the Commission is actually working on a regulation for net metering. You know, we are looking for power. I know there are people that generate more than they need, and you may have an available consumer whom you can sell to. So we are working on a regulation. As a matter of fact, we started working on it last year, but it was late last year. So I'm sure this year we're coming up with a regulation on net metering that will guide the process through which you can actually sell excess energy. I hope that answers the question.
Yes.
All right. You've answered some questions.
Any opportunities for new entrants?
Yes, there are questions here. You are in a hurry? I'm trying to respond.
They are hurrying.
Okay. On opportunities for new MMPs. As of today, we have given 121 no objections for MMPs, potential MMPs. The process continues. And the discourse also, right now they are doing enumeration. They have already gone into contract, quote unquote, with potential MMPs now for a certain number of meters to meet up their metering gap for the next 2-3 years. But as enumeration continues, new consumers and customers come on board, there is need to procure more. Now the contract they are entering with MMPs now is for specific areas and for specific quantity. As Nigerians continue to give birth, as people continue to grow, we will need meters. So it's a continuous process. So any new MMP, you can still apply for no objection, and there are opportunities for discourse to do the process of procurement once again. Let me just say something about CAPMI. You already said that people paid for CAPMI and couldn't get meters. That was the reason why we had to cancel it. But the MMP also provides an opportunity for you to do something similar to CAPMI. This time around, it is the MMP that will supply you your meter. What happened then was that it is the DISCO that will supply you the meter. And what we also did was to ensure that we've asked all the DISCOs to supply us with data of people who pay. As a matter of fact, we posted on our website that any consumer who has paid for a meter under CAPMI and has not been supplied should send his details to the Commission. We have received some, and we have made sure that the DISCOs supply you a meter. So long as you paid for meter under CAPMI, you are entitled to a meter. So the advice, as was given, is that go to your provider and tell him to give you a meter, or call the Commission, or send an email to the Commission. We have Consumer Complaints Department. They will handle that for you. It is your meter. You've paid for it. It is your right to have that meter installed in your premises. And so that's the one on the CAPMI. Let me say something about awareness and consumer awareness about MAP. I know one of the consumers said people don't know what is MAP. This process started around 2017. And based on our regulations, we do stakeholder consultations. We have met with different stakeholders all across the 6 geographical zones of this country to discuss this regulation. We have had series of meetings with key stakeholders, financiers, asset management companies, all those people who have something to do with meters. We've had meetings with them. Is that enough? It's not. People will continue to ask questions, and the responsibility we have as regulators and operators in the industry is to continue to explain to people what MAP is all about. And one of those opportunities are this kind of gathering. So we will continue to let people know what it is. It's not a technical thing. It's just trying to say that your disco is supposed to give you a meter. They have failed to give you a meter. They are coming with estimated billing that you've been complaining about. And the discos have said that, look, meters are expensive. Right now, we don't have enough funds to be able to procure those meters. We say, okay, fine. Let's get people who have the muscle, who also know how to manage and maintain meter, to come on board, bring their money and expertise to provide meters to you so that you will no longer receive estimated billing. You will now receive what exactly you consume. That's the essence of MAP. And so we just want you to know that it's to help the consumer pay for what he consumes.
Thank you.
Yes, I still need to. There's a question. Let me just answer questions that people always ask. I was here, I think it was April 2018. We talked about MAP. Questions keep coming about who owns the meter. Questions keep coming about, can I carry my meter? The thing I ask is that, what is owning a meter to you? What does it mean? I've asked that question. Look, the reason why people are asking for owning a meter is that they think when I have my meter, I can decide what to do with it. But it's not right. You cannot write your will and put meter, give meter to Bosse. Why I'm saying this is that people should understand, and I'm glad somebody said in one of the workshops we have in Lagos, we had a consumer advocate who came. There's need for a lot of enlightenment. The way you have meter, and it's like an account. You have an account with AEDC. That is how power is. Now, look at it this way. You have a deposit account with your banker. That deposit account, I know they've changed it and customized the teller and the rest of them, but generally what happens is that you enter into your bank and pick a teller. That teller is blank, needing information. Now that teller you come, the banker cannot withdraw money from your account without that teller being completed. You cannot withdraw money from that account without that teller being completed. Now you complete that teller, you put all the necessary information and sign. And then the banker will give you the money. Now that teller, that paper, is an instrument to show that I own this bank, this account, and I can withdraw money from you. That is how a meter is. The banker, though he printed the teller, listen, the banker, though he printed the teller, cannot say it's his teller. Because, excuse me, let me explain. Let me explain. Okay. Under the current dispensation, please. Okay. Okay, let me ask a question. If you are told that your meter is your own, what does that mean? No, okay, listen. What? Okay, can you take that meter, sir? Can you take that meter to another area and use that meter without the consent of the distribution company? He can't. Because you see, you can only use the meter. Yes, you can only, it's not like a car, sir. You can only use the meter for you to be able to know the amount of energy you need. And somebody is giving you that energy. And you cannot just carry, if you like, carry the meter and say, it's my meter, I'll take it to the village. It's useless. You can't use it for any other thing. And that is why we're saying that.
Hold on. Well, let me first of all apologize that we're going to go over 8 o'clock. But we'll try to end this before 8:10. And the second one, let me see if I can articulate what the audience is saying. The meter in my house, if it comes under map, I have to pay for it. If I leave Abuja because my economy has dropped, and I go to another state, and I get there and there is no meter in the house, do I start paying again, or is the credit on my meter in Abuja going to be transferred to this next level that I've gone to?
tell you, the question you asked, the regulation states clearly that the meter cannot be moved. And the reason is simple. Meter is not like car that you go and just put fuel in any filling station. The discourse will explain to you that you cannot just take a meter under AEDC and go to Lagos and say, put this thing for me. They will tell you. But anyway, listen. The regulation says if you have a meter which you paid for, and there is need for you to move within the same franchise area, your credit on that meter will be taken. That's why I said it's an account. So when you move to a particular area, what happens is that MAP under that area, under that franchise, will provide you with another meter and take care of that credit that you have, the outstanding credit you have. That is one. But if you are going outside of your franchise area, then it becomes a problem because there will be configuration issues. And what we said is that a consumer can enter into agreement with an MAP of that area and say, look, I'm moving to this location, can you refund some money to me and the rest of it? So there is also that provision. Okay, if I say carry the meter to Lagos and you cannot use it in Lagos, what is that to you?
Okay, let's talk to someone who is doing it right now.
Okay, for us in Abuja, let me explain. What the commissioner just said is what subsists. The moment you have to change your location, you can't carry the meter from the house. The meter is located in the property. It becomes the property of that structure. Whoever comes in will have to pay full payment for an MAP service. Now that is to cover you in the new location within the franchise area. If it is within the franchise area, you do not have to, that becomes a credit for you. So you are taking it over and you will continue. The obligation to us as MMPs is at the moment you come into a new property and you apply, we will, normally there is a reconciliation with the DISCO. So that reconciliation, and if you have an account, so that account is clear in the DISCO. Every payment you had made before is taken care of, and then the credit goes into your new structure. If I am paying 20,000 for a new meter, you will only pay 20,000 less what you have paid before. So that is how it is going here. Now on meter injection, you know, we cannot decide where we will take meter to on our own. It is in consultation with the DISCO. The DISCO actually is the secretariat, so to say, that determines for us who must benefit from, who has qualified for an MAP service. And therefore, if they tell us that the people that live in Maitama are the people or the customers there, we would say no, people in Garki are looking for it. We will have to go and do the ones that the DISCO has asked us to do. And that's why every time you hear the DISCO asking, if you need a metering service, please come to the DISCO, and then you will get that service.
Going out.
No, it's still move from, because if I am
moving from out
from my summer to Lagos.
Yes, that's so. I think it's clear. It's clear. You can't
move it. Sorry.
So if I paid 8,000 out of the 10,000 I'm supposed to pay, and I will go and start another payment.
Yes. That's what it is.
So if I keep moving because of my job,
don't be moving though. Yes, that's why you'll be paying. On changeover switch, the only reason why I'm entertaining is because it will help you. He has advice on changeover switch.
Please, I just want to say something which I think is important. People have asked, especially the man who talked about the land meter. The changeover switch is a mechanism which breaks you from your own local generation and take you to the utility company supply and vice versa. Why it becomes effective that it makes you pay twice for the fuel you bought is if you have a 3-pole changeover. But when you have a 4-pole changeover, when you switch off from your utility supply to the generator, you have cut off the neutral of your generation from that of the disco. So that means you are completely cut off and your meter will not see it. But it is when you have a common neutral, a 3-pole, just switch off the 3-phase, but the neutral is common, then you continue to actually pay for electricity that you are generating yourself. So just an information for you to be.
Thank you very much. It has been a very engaging audience, and thank you, panelists. I know there's going to be a vote of thanks. So I'm supposed to give a few action points and wrap up based on what we've discussed. Just a few things that we've gotten from this discussion. One is that for the MAPs, a lot more due diligence needs to be done. We also talked about the fact that there needs to be, now that some of you may have just been hearing about NEMSA's role, from the MAP standpoint, you need to engage NEMSA actively so that your models can reflect what's in reality. And even from a customer perspective, apparently, NEMSA seems to have a role. And we didn't have time to talk about that much, but and I guess that, again, this is still part of this interface I'm talking about. DISCO, MAP, NERC, NEMSA. There are certain roles that I don't know how much of capacity NEMSA has, but if you have a role with actual installations, it must mean that you must have a lot of capacity to go around. I don't know how that's going to work, or you would rather go, sorry, not to elicit a response, but it's a thought and an action point. How it's either that your approach should be with certifying installers, for example, and electricians, because I'm thinking in my head now, the electrician who comes to my house, is he certified in any way? So how does that happen? So that's another action point. Something else that we also discussed here was customer engagement. So much more customer engagement needs to be done, and there needs to be strategy for that. I will close there, and I think we talked about financing as well. The challenges are still there. We talked about the need for an asset management model that would work. What I think, given the discussions we've had, is that we will start with what we have. We will continue to tweak it as we go on, and out of that will come out proper asset managers that will make this easier. So, yes, I think
thank you so much for being here. I mean, we asked for 2 hours of discussion and it's 8:15, nobody is standing up. It means a whole lot. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our panelists, Engineer Dangana, thank you for making it here. Thank you for your honest responses. Thank you, Engineer Wesso. Thank you, Mr. Lawal. Thank you to our very able moderator, I must say. Thank you so much for coming. Going forward, the next power dialogue is coming up on the 20th of May. Special thanks goes to our respondent today. Even though he had such a busy schedule, he still made it here. He still gave his responses. Even though we wanted to stop him, he still continued because he knew he had something to say to all of us. Thank you so much, Mr. Shati. Thank you. So going forward, the next power dialogue comes up on the 20th of March, and this time around we'll be talking about sector governance. What is coordination amongst the value chain participants like? How can we improve it? So please look out for that. We'll be sending you emails, we'll be calling as usual. We'll keep disturbing you. You're not going to stop. Just take notes. Well, you have surveys with you. Please, if you've not filled them, endeavor to fill them. It's the way we would know how you actually feel about the dialogue. We want to improve, and we need you to help us to improve. That being said, we will just bid you all a good night. Don't go immediately. We still have drinks. We still have food. Stay back and enjoy yourselves. Thank you.